you go. All right.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. That's perfect timing.
Hi, everyone.
Well, welcome everyone. We will call this meeting of the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education regular meeting, Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. You're good, to order. Are we in compliance with open meeting law?
Yes, we are.
All right, roll call, please.
Ford.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Smithy.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is 2:10.
The land acknowledgement.
Yes, so as we gather today, we'd like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
All right, we are on to the approval of the agenda. Any changes?
You gotta give us some questions.
If not, we'll move on to the board administrative reports. Our first item here is recognition of retirements. We have 2 retirements today. The first is Mary Margaret Eastley. She was a certified occupational therapist across several locations: Oak Lawn, Carl Traeger, Reed Elementary, and Ready for Learning. Has been employed with the district since 2005. The second one is Margaret Salbigo, a cross-categorical teacher assistant at Oshkosh North High School since 2011. Barb, do you have something to say about these individuals?
I always think it's important that we recognize our retirees who have devoted a lot of time, energy, and effort to our students and their success, and I just want to wish these 2 all the best in retirement for a long, healthy, and happy retirement. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, Margaret.
Awesome. Thank you, Barb. Jacob's got a fan crew in the house. I like it. We like them too. Our next item is our mission moments here. We have 2 mission moments. The first one is one for me to read here. In our last Good News report, Superintendent Davis spotlighted an impressive student, Antonio Thompson. You can see him up there doing his various roles he's involved in during his high school career. We want to uplift him here with more information to come on this at our next meeting. So he just graduated from Oshkosh North and is headed to New York City as a national finalist for the Jimmy Awards, which is the National Theater Awards, High School Theater Awards. This accomplishment recognizes and celebrates outstanding student artistry in high school musical theater. Over the next 2 weeks, Tony will be in a 10-day residency at Juilliard, learning from Broadway professionals and competing for national scholarships. The district will be sharing a student spotlight video diving deeper into his successes and how his experiences in our schools led him to where he is. Until then, we're wishing Tony all the best as he learns and competes on the national stage. And I'm sure we'll learn more about his involvement in the arts, athletics, and academics, because if you've been around Oshkosh North over the last 4 years, chances are you've come across Tony taking advantage of all the things that school has to offer. So looking forward to that video, and congrats to Antonio. Now our second mission moment.
All right, so I'd like to welcome some guests up to the desk here. I'll have Erin Cole do some introductions, and we've got a star student that we'd like to highlight tonight.
So for our second mission moment, I'd like to welcome up here Amanda Laux, who is a kindergarten teacher at Reed Elementary School, and then our friend Dakota, who is very friendly and eager to share, and then his mom, Courtney, who is here to share as well. And Dakota, what's your little sister's name?
Baby Elena.
Baby Elena.
Baby Elena,
So welcome.
nice.
Awesome. So as we get started tonight, it's really a pleasure for me to have the opportunity to share this classroom math mission moment with you.
Dakota.
And Dakota, you're going to see a small portion of Number Corner, which is an integral part of our mathematics curriculum. It's a piece that runs from 4K through 5th grade, and it ties directly to our grade level academic standards. where kids get to review, preview, and practice their grade level standards in Number Corner. It's about 15 to 20 minutes every single day. And our highest achieving classrooms have taught routines so well that students can run the classroom. And so our video tonight is going to show you what happens to learning when teachers create a safe, predictable, and consistent learning environment. You'll hear a little help from the teacher, but if you watch this with an open heart, you will hear all the math and you will see the caring classroom community that Mrs. Laux has built for her classroom. You ready to watch the video?
Nice! I can't wait to have it! Yesterday was
Do you have the sound?
Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday. That's Ithaca.
The sound's not on.
That's him doing the sound.
That's Thursday. I can wait.
We're going to try it again.
Friday, Saturday, yesterday was Tuesday. Today is what? That's Thursday. Billy? Yes, I can, Billy. Wednesday. What's better? Malia? What's this sound? What's this? You can do that. Malia? That's Lavella.
W make.
That's Lavella. What's the sound of the W make? Kanye? Yeah. Yesterday was 16. What comes after 16? Esther? 17. Yes! Yesterday was one blue snowflake and one blue gray snowflake. What comes after? Women? That's a good wheel. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. 17. Yeah. So today is Wednesday. December 17th, 2025. We're down and let's check our 10th grade. How many dots are there right now? Colt? 8. Is there one more? 9.
Well
Good
done.
job.
So what you saw was just a small portion.
Good job.
I know, right? He's so encouraging, and he loves names. That's why I read everyone's name. But that was just a small portion of Number Corner. It's something that we do every day. It is a routine. And one day, Dakota came up to me and just said, "Dakota, do Number Corner?" And I was like, "Sure." And so every day, every Wednesday from that point on, he led Number Corner. And he knew it was his day. His picture was on the calendar. Some pieces that we didn't see were counting the dots, which is something we do every day. We do a calendar collection. We talk more about the cards that are in the calendar, like if they notice a pattern, if we took the 2 blue snowflakes and the 2 gray and put them together, how many would that be all together? So Number Corner is a great introductory to a lot of different skills that kids do in math. And like Julie said, it is a small component of Bridges. One of the most important things we can do as an educator is to help students see themselves as capable, confident learners. In math, that means giving students ownership of their learning. It allows them to think deeply and explain their reasoning, make mistakes, ask questions, and discover that their ideas have value. When students feel ownership, math becomes more than just finding the right answer. It becomes a process of problem solving, perseverance, communication, and confidence building. That is one of the reasons that Bridges math curriculum is so impactful in our classrooms. Bridges is designed to position every child as a mathematician. It encourages students to explore multiple strategies, share their thinking, and learn from one another, instead of focusing only on speed and memorization. Students are given lots of opportunities to develop conceptual understanding and see that there are many ways to approach a problem. Bridges also creates meaningful entry points for all learners. Whether a student is ready for enrichment or needs additional support, the curriculum allows every child to participate in rich mathematical thinking. Through hands-on activities, visual models, partner discussions, and real-world connections, students build both skills and confidence. Most importantly, Bridges help students develop a positive math identity. When children are encouraged to explain their thinking and take ownership of their learning, they begin to believe, I can do math, my ideas do matter, I am a mathematician. That belief can shape not only their success in school, but also the way they approach challenges throughout their lives.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, on to the president's report, or the superintendent's report,
Yes,
excuse me.
Yes, no, I
I
take
got
your
nothing
thunder.
to say, yeah.
So a lot of great things going on, as you can see from Dakota's presentation, throughout the district as we close out another school year. So just some highlights from the last couple months. In April, 45 of our middle school students and 23 of our high school students represented our district in the 8th annual UWO problem-solving contest, competing alongside 1,200 students across 65 schools across the state. We are proud to celebrate Greg, a 7th grader at Elps, who placed in the top 10% of the individual competition for all 7th and 8th graders. Additionally, our middle school team of Greg, Charlotte, and Cora earned a top 10% in the team division. Congratulations to all of our participants for showcasing the district's academic excellence on a statewide stage. Congratulations. Our Brewing Futures mobile cafe recently collaborated with Chartwell's Food Service to bring a wave of excitement to our elementary schools. During special May events, the Brewing Futures crew handed out complimentary Frisbees sponsored by Chartwell's, which students used in unique and reusable lunch trays. After enjoying their lunch, students were able to take the Frisbees home and stay active and play throughout the summer. Summer school is officially underway. The high school season kicking off session 1 this week. From human health issues to outdoor arts to interactive algebra, these classes are a great way for students to stay engaged in learning. Our elementary and middle school sessions are set to begin this Monday. This week, some of our younger learners are already in action building critical STEM skills at Camp Invention, hosted by Lakeside Elementary. We're excited to see our students carry their school year momentum directly into the summer learning opportunities. Carl Traeger Middle School tech and engineering students recently put their woodworking and manufacturing skills to the test by creating custom handcrafted Wisconsin-shaped charcuterie boards. This project taught students real-world lessons in blueprint reading, precision cutting, shop safety, and marketing support provided by the Oshkosh North Marketing Essentials class. You can head to Wagner Market and Beckett's to purchase these boards for just $30, which will go directly back to the school's tech ed department. Oshkosh West High School standout Sydney Nelson made history at the WIA Division I State Track and Field Championships in lacrosse by capturing her 3rd consecutive state title in the 100-meter hurdles. Her championship-level performance led an impressive showing from the Wildcats, who also saw podium finishes from Kylie in the 400 meters, Kayana and Emma in the triple jump, and the boys 4x400 meter relay team. Congratulations to all of our student athletes who had a successful success in the last few weeks as we wrapped up the school year. Many of our elementary schools wrapped up the school year with a high-energy field day celebration. Students enjoyed a wide variety of activities, from bounce houses to obstacle courses to unique themes. It was a perfect, high-spirited way to celebrate our students' hard work and send them off into a safe and happy summer. We thank staff, families, and volunteers who made these experiences possible for all of our students across the district. 6th grade literacy classes at Val Phillips finished up their Percy Jackson, The Lightning Thief book club unit by creating Greek pottery showing scenes from their favorite part of the book. Students learned about ancient Greek pottery before beginning their project and applied that knowledge to create their own ancient Greek pot. Last week, we hosted the annual Retirement and Recognition Dinner to celebrate the milestones careers of our dedicated staff. We celebrated 54 retirees who had retired since June of last year, and 18 staff members who reached their 25-year milestone with the district this past school year. We extend the deepest gratitude for these educators and staff for their unwavering commitment to the Oshkosh community. As part of that celebration, we also proudly presented the 2026 Friends of Education Awards to an outstanding individual and organization for their exceptional support of our schools and students. Trina Wolt received the individual award for her tireless advocacy work on the strategic vision for our schools and her role in developing the Read More Oshkosh Literacy campaign. Seppo was honored with the corporate award for removing barriers to student success, supporting student learning, supporting multicultural family outreach, and providing essential resources. Both recipients truly embody the Students First mission of our district, and we thank them for their incredible partnership and look forward to continue our work together. As the school year came to a close, also Shapiro STEM Academy community gathered for a deeply meaningful final days to honor the school's incredible legacy. Students and staff celebrated their time together with a 5th grade talent show and a vibrant all-school glow party. Though the doors are closing, the innovative spirit, cherished memories, and lasting impact of Shapiro will certainly live on in our district. Across the district, staff at nearly a dozen sites have gone above and beyond to pack up their classrooms and clear spaces to allow for the immediate summer construction projects to start, from air conditioning installations to building constructions and moves. This was a heavy lift for many staff members as we wrapped up the school year, and it's ongoing work for our operations, maintenance staff, and custodial teams over the summer, in addition to all the regular summer projects that they're supporting. Just want to say we're deeply grateful for the flexibility, teamwork, and hard work that everyone has put in as we pull in the same direction to upgrade our facilities for our future. And finally, some places I've been able to be out and about in the last couple of weeks as we finished off another great school year here in the Oshkosh Area School District. And that concludes the Superintendent's Good News Report for tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. Next, we have 3 written reports. Even though these are written reports, I'm assuming that these are ones that are going to have some questions and people are going to have things to say about them. So the first one is regarding reading achievement. So I guess I can invite them up.
Yep, yeah. Kim
Yeah.
and Sam and Jackie.
Let's invite them up because people are going to want to talk about these.
Good evening, thank
Yeah,
you.
Good evening.
So some of the things we want to highlight is we did want you to know that our proficiency rate actually increased from 52 to 53%. While this is not statistically significant change, we did want you to know that more students completed the assessment, and then we got to share that positive movement with you. So, and then also I wanted to let you know that in this report, you'll see that we gave a little bit more information on stretch growth, and because we know that increasing that growth is what is really going to help us get to proficiency on the forward exam, which is why we highlighted that piece. And then that we want to continue to let you know that we are really focusing in on our 4 proven processes, while placing an increased emphasis this next year for literacy on targeted practice. And then I believe we have a couple of things that wanted to highlight at secondary.
Yeah, I'd really like to lift up Belle Phillips, their 6th grade team. They've just did an outstanding job this year, and their proficiency went up almost 13%. So that team has just put in the work.
That's great.
That's great news.
The other thing we've noticed in middle school is the work that we've done to support our targeted population of students is making a difference. They're growing at a faster rate than our non-students that we're targeting. And so taking that momentum into the work we want to do to move all with proficiency is we're doing really well at moving some of our lowest students and moving them at a faster rate. And so now looking at targeting some of our students that are one grade level behind. So not losing momentum here, but continuing that momentum to push the one grade level into proficiency. So.
Excellent. Well, I guess questions and comments from the board for the group. Yeah, Barb.
I find these data very encouraging. I know these are not the state tests, but they're often a precursor of what's to come on the state test. If we're making progress on iReady, then we may also be making progress on the state test. I did have a question on one of your charts. It's labeled Performance and Growth Quadrant Data Chart, source iReady. I'm not sure I'm interpreting this correctly. There's a column labeled Performance Relative to National Norm, and it's stated as percentiles, which I do understand, and I believe the schools are listed in alphabetical order, so I shouldn't discern anything other than that's the order. I'm wondering, is there a relationship between that relative performance relative to the national norm and the median % typical growth achieved? Because some of the schools have very high growth. For example, Bell Phillips at 155% median % increase in growth, and their relative performance relative to the national norm is 37%, which is among the lowest on the list. So I'm wondering, is there a correlation between those two, or how should I be interpreting those?
So those points are what are on the graph right above it too. So
Okay.
it's what builds the quadrant chart right above it. And it indicates exactly what we just said, actually, that Bell has been doing outstanding. They've had a lot of students who are not yet performing at proficient, but are making outstanding growth. So that's why they fall in that particular quadrant, because they're not there yet. But it indicates that hopefully they'll be bumping to the right one quadrant in the very near future.
So their high growth is above most, right?
Yes.
But then their achievement level is in a lower percentile compared to nationally norm. So as we continue to push the growth and the high growth, we'll be moving that needle forward.
Thank you. I had an opportunity this past year, starting in October, to volunteer in a 6th grade literacy classroom at Bell, up to 3 times a week. And I was very impressed with the approach that the teacher took, not only for her own classroom, but for all the 6th grade classrooms. It was clear that there was a lot of collaboration going on, a lot of sharing, a lot of development of instructional resources that were designed to help students fill in the gaps that they were missing. They were really using the data to drive instruction and to meet the needs of the students. It was almost a one-on-one correlation. I don't know that each student had a particular reading goal. They probably did, but I was very impressed, and then seeing at the end of the year, not the names of the students, but the % increases in that particular classroom was really impressive. What I understood was challenging, or one of the challenges facing our middle school's 6th grade teachers in literacy and perhaps in math, is the number of elementary students who come to the middle school who are 1 or more grade levels behind. So if we can figure out how to fix that, or reduce the number of kids who are behind, especially by 2 or 3 grade levels, that would really allow those 6th grade teachers to move those students farther along and get them into higher level classes eventually, such as AP classes and dual credit with the tech school as well as UW Oshkosh to further their education beyond high school. So I see that as a continuum of success and of services, and I think we can do that. As I've stated before, I'm totally convinced that the pillars that Dr. Coleman and the team have outlined should get us there, as long as those are being implemented with fidelity, as they are intended to be. And so I don't see it as a problem of defining the curriculum. I don't see it as a problem of the instructional materials. It to me has to come to the professional development and then the follow-up with the principals in terms of feedback. And I'm not criticizing anybody, I'm just saying that those are areas that it appears to me we need to show more growth.
On that, Dr. Coleman, can you explain how you utilize these data points?
Yeah, absolutely. Even as recently as today, we talked about how we will leverage our strategic initiatives. We talked about that in the context of use of our instructional materials, strategic and effective use of our data, also our professional development and coaching processes, and then the evaluation and feedback that we provide teachers and principals. So we use those 4 components as levers to prioritize how we reach our goals. And today was an example of when we build out our strategies and our plans to reach those goals step by step through the context of those 4 components of our cooking process.
Okay, I mean, is it fair to say that, I know we talked at length about the pros and cons of the iReady, but it's designed to give you actionable information, to give teachers actionable information, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we use iReady for several reasons, including a progress monitoring tool. And so it allows teachers to get a sense of goals that students need to set. And as you might recall, Tara Perry, who joined us last month, she went into, I think, really important detail around how those data can be used to inform targeted instruction, set up groups so that we are attending to students who need to meet proficiency, but also those who are already proficient and we want to get them over to advance.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Yeah, Molly.
I think I have 3. The median typical growth. I've had people try to explain it to me multiple times already. But it does not necessarily mean that is just amongst everyone who has taken the iReady this year, correct? So we still obviously want to be in the upper half of this, and then obviously high performance, high growth is great. But so the areas I'm most concerned at, looking at specific points on here, what prevented South Park from seeing, they are the only ones in reading that are low growth, low performance for this year. What happened there?
I think looking at culture and climate and building changeover was difficult in that building, and so between that and some switching within their literacy, teachers teaching new curriculum as well, like they switched grade levels for that. I think that was a big piece of that, and that is a targeted strategy that we are hitting hard going into next year to support a different result.
Okay.
I would just add, when we look at schools that are making optimal growth and schools that are striving to meet optimal growth, there certainly is information that we have about the impact and the strength of instructional leadership. All the research out there is crystal clear about how important instructional leadership is. And so this information also gives us a sense of where we need to support through professional development, through coaching, through additional accountability, strong instructional leadership at school. That makes a difference in students making high performance and high growth.
Okay. I'll save, I have an overall question that's similar on that I'll save for math, but I guess the other part I'm really concerned about with the median typical growth is if our whole country who's doing iReady is just not doing great in a given year at helping with proficiency. This is a challenge of the iReady, right? Like, we're only comparing ourselves to how well, and yes, I'm very happy that we're doing better than the median typical growth. But I'm still very worried about the people that are still very close to not even meeting the typical growth when we know that our country as a whole is not doing great with growth. So, and then it also is striking to me the schools that are in the upper right quadrant. Fairly consistently, it is a certain location of school, a certain demographic of school, and I just want to know what we're going to be able to do to create some equity and some parity so that we start seeing, or what expectations are there to get, what are we actually going to do to get those expectations to lead to getting more people in that upper right quadrant?
There has been significant movement since last year in this particular quadrant chart. So we have almost all of our schools moved up. So it's, part of it is a matter of leaning into what we've done this year that has been supporting these schools in that moving up and starting to slide over to for performance. So one of the things we are doing is just looking into the success of, for example, the 6th grade team at Val and continuing to lean into those strategies and help them spread across all of the buildings and the levels.
Sam, and maybe you can speak to a little bit of Jefferson's, results also. I think that's, a good example of some progress.
Yeah, you're reading my mind. So I also thought about just comparing where Jefferson was last year on the quadrant chart to substantial, really impressive growth. And we know, and the principal of Jefferson and I talked actually this afternoon, just saying that she could put into a paragraph or so what are some of the specific instructional leadership practices she's committed to that she believes had a connection to or a relationship to students' performance. And as Teresa shared, our responsibility is to learn from principals and teachers around what they're doing that's effective, and then consider ways we can scale that across our system. But Tanisha's presence in classrooms, her deep knowledge around effective early literacy practices, looking for those when going into classrooms, having an accountability structure for the use of the curriculum and the use of teaching strategies. Those are all things Principal Jones, Lady Jones as she prefers to be called, would say she's really hit hard this year. And so while we were extremely impressed when the data came through, we weren't surprised because we saw those practices in place. And we need to scale those across our schools.
Jefferson was one of my liaison schools this past year, and so I had the opportunity to visit with Lady Jones, the principal, on 2 occasions for an extended visit. I know that she was very focused on student achievement, and one of the ways that she was focusing on that was developing her own knowledge base and skills in terms of being a better instructional leader, building on the skills she already possessed as an instructional leader in the area of literacy, and specifically on the science of reading. She was also very focused on improving student behavior and defining expectations for students in terms of, okay, which behaviors should the teachers be handling in their classrooms and which behaviors should the office be involved in, and making sure that the students would see the teacher as the primary classroom management individual. I saw her on Friday afternoon, the last day for the instructional staff, and she was exuberant over these scores. She said, I can't tell you what they are until they come out on Friday in the packet, but she was very excited about the iReady scores. So kudos to the entire Jefferson community for all their work this year.
Dr. Herzog, if I can just zero in on one point that you made, and that is because Lady Jones has made clear distinctions around classroom management expectations and how those behaviors are managed in the classroom, so that she's not involved in every single behavior-related incident which would impede her ability to be an instructional leader and be present in classrooms. And so that delineation of duties and that clarity around expectations have been an extremely important lever in her ability to get in classrooms and support teachers.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I have one follow-up.
Yeah, please, Molly.
Do you think that the belief in the ability of students to achieve varies by school and by classroom? And if so, what are we doing about that?
Mindset's key, right? Like, we have to have all of our educators, all of the people in our buildings believing that our kids can achieve at a high level. And that's something that we're constantly looking at and tackling. So to answer your question, yeah, it does vary. And that's something that we are getting really candid about. And making sure that we are not shifting our expectations for whoever's in front of us.
And I would just say belief is often pictured or described as something that can't be seen, but I think there's evidence of belief. And we know if educators in schools see future mathematicians and entrepreneurs and college grads it is clear when there's an assumption that that is the group of students in front of me. You teach, you connect, you build relationships, all of that, as if you know this student's trajectory is headed in that way. And part of what we are also pushing as part of adjusting that mindset is making sure we certainly see students and respect students for where they are in their journey, but we have to see every single student in this school district for who they can become and what their fullest potential would look like if they achieved it. And then we have to show up every day and teach like that is what's happening. And that takes a certain level of discipline. It takes a certain level of restraint, especially if we see a student whose behavior might not be what we would want in that moment. But we still have to see that student as capable and then deserving of accountability, deserving of structure, and deserving of high expectations for achievement.
And I guess I would just add, we've shifted our philosophy in the last 3-4 years. And that's why we went to a different curriculum in the middle school. Instead of meeting our kids where they were at, we're saying all of our students can be reading at grade level. We need to be teaching them that universally at grade level. So as we've made that shift as leaders in the district, as well as like the support from the board to make those curricular shifts, those continue to trickle down with our staff in terms of mindset and expectations.
Yeah, Chris.
No, I'm good. He answered.
Okay. Any more on reading, or do you want to go to math?
Go to math.
Let's go to math. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm feeling good.
Yes, me too.
Just like charts. All right. Welcome to the newbies and welcome back to,
Thank
to
you.
the returnees.
Yeah, so just in a nutshell with math, we were up 2 percentage points in proficiency over last year, which we're actually elated about. This was our second year of our new curriculum in elementary and in middle school, so Bridges, 3rd edition, and illustrative math. So last year we actually saw, from last year in our first year of implementation from the year before, an actual 1% dip in our proficiency, which typical for new curriculum materials, you usually see an implementation dip. If you ask our teachers when they're going to be most comfortable with a new curriculum, it's usually 3 to 5 years. So in year 2, we were excited to see an increase in proficiency of 2%. Obviously want that to be more, but that's where we are at this point.
All right. Questions
about the report?
Chris, do you have something?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Are there no questions?
I guess I'll throw one out there. When we look at the quadrants with the dots showing where the schools fell, what strategies do you have in place to move those schools who are in the low performance, low growth?
Yep. Okay, so one of the things that Julie and I have been working on for next year is a tiered system of support. So identifying those schools that are in that low growth, low performance, and wrapping around additional support from the two of us, additional classroom support from coaches. So really looking at the data to tier that. In the past couple years, we've kind of done the same number of learning walks with principals in every school, the same amount of math data meetings with every single principal. So it's been more of a little more of a one-size-fits-all.
Okay.
And so we're really looking at a tiered system of support for next year, where we would provide more intensive supports to the schools that need the most support.
Kudos.
Thank you.
I was just going to say kudos again to Lady Jones to put Jefferson above the midpoint.
And Bill Phillips.
Yeah.
And Bill Phillips.
And again, I talked about it in reading, but we have about 30% of our population in math that are 1 grade level behind, just like in reading. And so you think about that. You think about targeting that very similar how we targeted our lowest population of our students to grow them faster. We know that when we get really specific about goals and how close they are to that next level and be targeted during that process of the teacher-student interaction before they take the test and taking the iReady test, we really believe we're going to be able to push that to the next space. Even if we get half of our kids or 10% of those kids, right, to move to that next level, you're going to see a huge bump in that proficiency piece, in which we need to be doing, because that just continues to move that idea of high expectations for all of our students, and they need to see them as it being at grade level too. So
another thing at the elementary level that has been a challenge with like the new curriculum implementation is as teachers are learning the like sessions and the lessons, pacing the lessons in order to have that targeted time. Unlike literacy that has a specific like block of time for targeted instruction, in math it's embedded in our in that curriculum, but you have to be able to like pace the lesson to get to that part of the lesson where that targeted practice and additional like differentiated support can be provided. So that is something that we are really working to provide clarity for teachers around that, and really highlighting the number of times in each unit that they should be offering that targeted practice.
Go ahead. I have one question. The stretch growth. Can we say that if every student was proficient, that we wouldn't need stretch goals anymore, because they wouldn't be stretching unless they'd be stretching over their proficient goals?
We would love them to stretch over their proficiency goals.
I'm just looking, saying maybe it's okay that in some cases we didn't do as well in the stretch goal because we've gotten kids closer to where they need to be, so they don't need to be 3 grade levels to be proficient. Maybe they only need 1.5 to be proficient.
And the stretch goals are different for every single child depending on where they're at on the iReady test.
Yeah.
So the farther behind you are, the like greater your stretch goal, right? So
right.
Yeah, so that is different for each child, but we ideally want even our like strongest, most proficient advanced learners to advance their learning and hit their stretch growth goals. Absolutely.
Yeah. Molly?
I'll just make a comment related to stretch goals. And I heard throughout the year that there was intentionality with trying to communicate with students, and maybe to families, I don't know so much about the families, but for sure to students, about the goals and making them, or helping them understand that it was important to at least try on the iReadies. And I can only say from my own, like, one child focus group, I mean, he was really proud at the end of the year when he reached his stretch goal in math. I'm assuming he did not because I did not hear about it. So it does matter, and I appreciate that engagement with them, and they like getting the free treats when they meet those goals and things too. So I hope that we can continue to do that. Okay, I'm going to open a can of worms though, because it's just in case. I'm going to give you math experts the opportunity. So I think a lot of parents out there are like, oh, everything is just harder now. Why are we focusing on teaching kids so many different ways of teaching math? Is that impeding moving towards proficiency more? I would like to give you an opportunity, if you want to give a quick 2-minute spiel as to why teaching the math the way that we are teaching you feel is the best opportunity long-term for these kids.
Yeah, so really it's not about teaching all the strategies to children. It's setting up learning parameters for children to be able to think and reason about numbers, to think and reason about problems that are being posed to them. So it becomes more of an exercise of looking at numbers and thinking about how close they are to one another, and being able to sort of grapple that way. So I think there was a misunderstanding that we taught like 7 different strategies to subtract, and more about let's get them to think which method, what do you notice about the numbers, and then what might be the best strategy for you. So, and we're always about getting to the right answer. I always tell kids that we'll help you get to that right answer. I'm not okay getting the wrong change when I pay in cash at Quick Trip. Like, I want my change back, and that's accurate. So we teach kids about tending to precision and how they find the accurate answers. But how kids get there sometimes looks different, and it definitely might look different than how you learned math. But my challenge to you as a parent would be to say, tell me more about that. Why does that work? Or look how I learned it. How is that like my way? Because then you can make some connections with your kids to start seeing the strategies they're doing, and then it might open your eyes to how you learned and how really they do overlap. But it's all about thinking and reasoning about numbers. So that here's my last, I could go on for hours. But think about this one problem, 300 minus 299. I want kids that can think about where 300 is on a number line and where 299 is to know that that's a difference of 1. I don't want kids who have to write down 300 minus 299 and cross off borrow to come up with, no joke, 101. Because they didn't even think about the answer. They didn't think about an estimate or those two numbers related to each other. That, I want my kids to do that. And people will say, well, just give them a calculator. If I punch my numbers in wrong and I get 101 on that same problem and I write it down because that's what my calculator said, I still haven't done the thinking. So that's what we're getting at when we talk about the different strategies. It's kids being able to think and reason about numbers and quantity. Thank you. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't mean to sound like a doubter. I just wanted to make sure, we know, I think we all get questions about it.
It's totally a passion. And if you're wondering, give your kids a chance to open their Chromebooks and go on the apps that they use and show you with quantity. Because if we can always anchor back to the parts and the pieces to that sense making, then it really will enlighten you as well. It's so cool. Because I've had people say to me, why didn't I learn math this way? So if you'd like to take an hour later, I will take reservations.
I love it. I love it. I guess to clarify off of some of those comments, I mean, was there intentionality with families about educating them about stretch goals?
I don't know.
We didn't necessarily target the families. We did at middle school. We really targeted the students to understand, like, you know, we found that a lot of the kids who are 1, 2, 3 level grade below, it was another thing they had to do, and then the result was going to be, I'm still not in the green, right? Like, that's what they see it as. And so we really targeted the fact of goal setting from before, you know, the time they walked in the door of what that looks like. And then what some of our schools did in the mid-year was how close are you to the next range of cutoff? And then what's natural in everybody? Competition, right? Well, if I'm only 5 points away, I can get that. Like, I just gotta get 1 or 2 more questions, right? And so that's like a natural, especially in middle school and boys, right? Like, that's a natural piece of competitive nature. And so we wanna really be strategic in math and literacy to now talk about the cut scores with the kid, because that came out of the next phase of it.
Sorry.
Sorry, I do think families need to know what students' goals are, and I think that gives us more momentum to partner with families so that students are talking about their learning goals beyond the classroom. If they're at home talking about that, I think that makes sense. And
And again, I asked because, like, Molly, I had a focus group of 1. I knew it was happening at Vel because my kid goes there and the teachers were talking about it with us, but
And I
again,
think, like,
small
I know
sample
that
size.
there are some schools that will have family nights where there is a math focus, where they let the parents experience, like, what learning math is like now in an elementary school. In addition, with Bridges, at the start of every unit, there is a family letter that goes home that talks about, these are the learning goals for the unit, here's how we approach that. And then at the end of each unit, the parent should be getting an individual student progress report that has the student's assessment and, like, where they're at for proficiency for each of the standards within that unit. And then we're actually working to update those letters to provide more like tips and strategies for parents of how they can support continued learning at home with their children.
Seems like a good idea. Other questions? Barb.
I have a question that build off of a comment that was made about how are we stretching the students who are already proficient, or that student who, you know, maybe could be considered to advance a grade level. I'm not suggesting we do that, but in the old days, sometimes that came about. how are we making sure that students are progressing a grade level at a time, even if they're already a grade level or two up ahead of their peers?
That's the unique thing about the Bridges curriculum is it has so many open-ended tasks that teachers can structure that for kids to take it as far as they want or as far and be encouraged to take something farther. We look for models they can use to share their answers, and can they model it another way? Can they find a place where that happens in the real world? Can they prove this rule? We still do accelerate on occasion beyond grade level, but we have concept quests. If you ever hear your students talk about concept quests, those are really open-ended type excursions that kids go on that will take them deeper in their grade level curriculum as well, because we know that math isn't just something to be consumed, it's something to really build and understand. And so if we can help kids develop that deep understanding at grade level, and then that will launch them to that next grade level.
In addition, the Bridges curriculum specifically calls out like challenge opportunities for students who need those opportunities. Like, here's a question you might ask for students who need a challenge, or here's a different way to pose that task or whatever. So it's like specifically called out in the sessions, just like there are call outs for multilingual students. There are call outs for students that might need the additional support and those types of things right in the lesson plans.
I think the two things at middle school I would say is the simple piece of like data is used for everything, right? It shouldn't just be used to move our kids to proficiency. That's the beauty of our teachers being able to use that data and know their students on what they need and how to move to advanced or beyond. And also why, was it last year or 2 years ago? Last year we really looked at like our parameters for what we used to call like compacted, and now we have the integrated 6, 7, 7, 8, because we want kids to be able to challenge themselves and not be held to just the fence of a certain percentile on the forward or, you know, teacher recommendation or that piece, because, you know, whatever their goal or dream going forward, if it is heavy in math, we want to provide that opportunity for them.
Thank you all for your responses.
Can I go for that? Because you actually, that was going to be my next follow-up question, because accelerated, so 5th grade to middle school is the key for, I think, is it for math and literacy? I guess I maybe won't get to answer that one, but to get into any accelerated or advanced programming for the middle school or in the compacted stuff, which then puts you, by the time you get to be a senior in high school, that's your only opportunity to get to the advanced calculus classes. But anyways, so iReady is a component that is looked at for identifying kids who would be potentially in those compacted classes, correct?
Well, we used to have like you had to meet 2 out of the 3 requirements of forward and iReady or teacher recommendation and forward kind of thing. And we really talked about the fact that like parents need to be heavily, like we really pushed the understanding of parents saying like if they're interested in math or they're, you know, curious about math, and like that, we don't want those parameters to be there. So yes, it's sometimes a lead-in. It's used on both sides of that, like kids who maybe wouldn't push there, but then Jan's done a really good job of reaching out to our incoming 6th grade families to say, hey, your kid is really strong. Did you know this opportunity was there? Where before we wouldn't have done that. So on both sides of the coin, I guess, on that.
Well, I appreciate that it is more of a holistic approach to it to try to get more people.
My one question is, like my son's in the advanced track or whatever, so we were with his friends. Do we do that, but that's at Alps, do we do that at each school? Okay, good, good. So I wanted to make sure, because I don't know, they've even got a couple kids that I think are even beyond the advanced track, which their parents are looking for beyond calculus in high school, you know, and that's part of their thought process, but I like that we're doing that.
Each one of our middle schools has an integrated section for 6, 7, and 7, 8. So
awesome.
That's great.
Other questions or comments?
Yes.
Yeah, Jacob.
I guess so. If looking at this correct, we've got 8 of the 15 schools that are not reaching 1 full year of growth, which is that's tough to look at. When we talk about what you were saying, how you have different ways of solving problems and going, one thing as a parent I've noticed is my kids will bring homework home and they go, Dad, I need help. And I look at it and I go, I have to search what you're doing and can you explain it to me? And they go, no. So when you were saying that, I have to study, which is fine. I love studying. But I think a lot of parents might just go, well, I don't know, and then send it back without that problem being answered. So support at home, I think, is not where it needs to be because of the different way of teaching, and I understand changes need to be made, but I see that as kind of a big issue.
Mm-hmm. I definitely hear you, and as we've been talking as my team of coaches, we've been looking at ways that we can improve our family support. So we do 2 family nights at every school every year, which one is around literacy and one is around math. So I thought about how could we really ramp up the math part to empower those parents, and then possibly we've brainstormed sides of town, like having just a night for a whole bunch of schools to meet, maybe at Menominee or West Side School, and then just come in and talk about math and do some math.
So on the iReady, I haven't, I guess, looked into it enough. Do they have to be solved a certain way, like the questions that they're being given in the iReady testing, or?
No, because it's a multiple choice, so they just have to get the answer, so they can solve.
Okay.
We give them practice to use online tools, but they also get pencil and paper.
Sure.
So they can use whatever strategy through the tools or just pencil
I know that
and
I'll
paper.
show them, like you said, the
Oh,
way
sure.
I did it growing up. and
Yep.
My daughter's usually like, oh, that makes sense, and then she solves it that way. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the standards we do. So that's a 4th grade standard, is the standard algorithm for addition and subtraction. 5th grade is the standard algorithm for multiplication, and 6th grade is the standard algorithm for division. So when we think about building all of their understanding of place value and quantity and how numbers change as you move through the place values, by the time they get to 4th grade, we introduce that standard algorithm 3rd grade, but we look for proficiency by 4th grade. So please don't think that we don't ever teach those standard algorithms, and there's absolutely a place for those. It's a great way to organize your thinking and to be able to show what you did. But yes, that comes out in 4th grade.
Well, and I think also the point you're making is there are different ways to get to understand why 8 times 8 is 64. And I think we want that. Like, we want students to have different ways to get to an answer. And so we encourage that. So I don't want parents to look at what might be in the materials and say, because I have a different way of solving it, like, I can't help you. Even in the classroom, we ask, like, all right, who has a different way to solve this problem? We want that conversation, so don't give up.
Yeah, that's a favorite. When a child says, my mom, my dad, somebody in my house cared enough to help me with my homework, I celebrate that. Okay, let's talk about, what did they talk to you about? Let's talk about it. How does that relate to what we're doing in our classrooms? And really building those connections, because we appreciate that time that you invest in spending with your kids. So don't worry, you're not going to do anything wrong, I promise.
I want to get the math answers wrong. I don't know that.
I was waiting for you to get the 8 times 8 wrong, Sam. Really, I had some anxiety for you there, but you nailed it. Well, anything?
I learned the old math. It's like just math facts. Like,
anything else?
We're good.
We're good. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
And the next one, I don't know if anyone, Jackie, if you want to stay up there in case anyone has questions for you. Does anybody have questions about the student involvement written report?
I was thrilled to see the increase.
Yeah. That was my main reaction, but I don't know if anyone has any further discussion. If not,
All right.
all right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.
All right, then we are on to our public forum. So a total of 45 minutes is allotted to both non-agenda and agenda-related items. Reminder, public comment priorities given to residents of the school district, people who have a student enrolled in the district, or employees of the school district. But everybody is welcome to speak, and for safety purposes, please provide the name of the city you reside in and not your specific address. And it looks like we have one individual for both agenda and non-agenda, and she has the same name, which is cool. So for non-agenda, we have Jean Erdman. You have 3 minutes. And please state, what city you live in.
Thank you. My name is Jean Erdman, and I live in Oshkosh. Gender-related items. We went to the summit. I was in it. Spent 12 hours. A lot of time. So as you consider the data that survey responders from the community spent maybe 3 minutes on, and the 12 hours that we spent at the summit learning together, I would encourage you to consider the summit data more heavily. We invested a lot, and you don't want to lose the positively building reputation of community engagement being taken seriously. So thank you. I also thought the summit was excellent, and I went really skeptical. To give up 12 hours of my time during a week, to me, is a really big deal. So I was going to talk to you about continuing to be focused on culturally responsive teaching, but the curriculum now is culturally responsive. It's good for black and brown students, it's good for white students, it's good for all of the kids. Some of the features of it are features that were common for retirees older than I am in schools. The use of integration of movement, the inclusion of clapping, of group response. And I think it's very sweet that, and I think you should publicize that, it's very sweet that some of the things that we now find are really good for activating children's brains to be engaged in learning are things that were very common in my parents' generation. Because older people would have no way of knowing that unless we publicize that. The having the piano in the classroom to use the music. Having the answering all together as a class, some of the rote things. And so the culturally responsive teaching is not only good for all of the kids, it's also good because it honors some of the things from my parents' generation. So we lost some knowledge along the way, and now we're regaining it, which I think is just great. As you work on the curriculum, I was going to say a whole bunch of things, but you're obviously so far ahead of me. I'm so impressed with the board's questions, and I'm so impressed with all of the curriculum people that were here, and with Dr. Coleman's leadership in this area of his job. The one thing I might add is, as you structure the curriculum for learning goals, just double check that the kindergarten teachers feel that the kids have enough time to play. And kindergartners define play as I get to decide what I do. It's not whether it's with blocks or whatever, it's that they get to decide. And that's really good for the 5-year-old brain. You already talked about the need for staff development. West Alice's scores this last year went up much more quickly. They're a good role model for us, but I think we're not that far behind. I think this district is really on the right path, and if I'd seen that 6 or 8 years ago when I got involved, I probably wouldn't have gotten involved. I really am very encouraged. I also want to say that, and this is also
we're at time. Do you want to move on to non-agenda?
Yep, I do.
All right.
Okay. I commend Dr. Davis for doing more with volunteering and with community engagement and opportunities for volunteers. Anything we can do to promote that and knowledge of it through the newspapers or elsewhere, I think would be good. There's things going on I didn't know about that encourage volunteering, like the global program and the communities program. The PTO some PTOs have started encouraging retirees to join the PTO, because retirees live longer now. Many don't die at 65, and there's perhaps a 10 or 15 year period in there where they have energy and, most important, time. So I like it that the community is being brought in. In terms of challenges, Wisconsin is still one of the worst states for differences between blacks and whites. I always thought it would be the southern states. It's not. It's the upper Midwest. So we still have work to do in our communities and continuing work in the district. For example, Milwaukee, of the 50 large metropolitan areas, Milwaukee's part of us, it's part of Wisconsin, is part of the 50 metropolitan areas, has the lowest median income for blacks. Okay? It's ranked last among the 50 metropolitan areas for income for black people. In terms of the 2023-24 school year, the white graduation rate was 92.7, the black graduation rate was 71, and that's also the biggest gap in the United States. So we need to do work within our communities. I think the school district is moving ahead. We need to do work in our communities with just like we did the Community Foundation did the program to educate people about the negative effects of screens and technology on kids. We need to do some community-wide things about not being afraid of black people and thinking they're dangerous just because they're black. Black people have the right to be individuals just like white people have the right to be individuals. We need to move this out into the community, and I'm not asking the school district to do that. Your plate is really full, but I will talk to people in the community to move in that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jean. All right, we can move on to our workshop on strategic framework priorities and survey results, and hand it over to Superintendent Davis.
All right, great. So I'm going to take an opportunity tonight to work through some of our results that we had received from the summit, along with our survey that we have put out related to the themes that we found at the summit, and provided an opportunity for some additional feedback. So I want to start there tonight. Then I want to talk about how that information that we received from the community is influencing the foundation of our strategic framework and our priorities that we're looking at over the next 10 years, and then some of the initiatives that we're doing directly for next year. So I want to start with those two aspects of it, then move into some tools that we're going to use that we actually started to use over the last couple days with our administrators at our administrative academy, and then talk about the next steps for this board, which is really looking at KPI development. So just want to be able to tie all of this together, knowing that the community has committed some significant time to be able to inform us moving forward, and that time is well spent, and we'll see some direct action as we go. So these materials were in the board packet, but again, just wanted to be able to provide some continuity just in the storytelling. So in our document that we have posted as part of the packet, we have the school summits topics and themes. So we had 18 themes that were created as part of the school summit, and then we had voted to rank those 18 themes 1 to 18 based on priority, and each member of the summit was able to vote for their top 6, and that was how we created our priorities at the summit. So on the left-hand side, you can see the results, and the topics that were identified at the summit are in the order of their rank at the summit. So again, as Jean Urban had mentioned, just the significant time that people have spent on at the summit, we wanted to make sure that we're honoring that time. Also wanted to be able to provide the comparison as we had executed the survey that the board had asked for related to the summit themes, and providing some feedback on those summit themes. So we asked for community members, students, parents, staff members to be able to provide us with feedback and take a look at those 18 themes and vote for 6 of those themes, and be able to see what is the compare and contrast of the results from the survey. So we had over 2,500 people fill out the survey results. And so I wanted to do a little bit of compare and contrast with that, and show you on one page, if you will, the comparisons between those two prioritizations. I think a couple things interesting for me. So one is to be able to take a look at just our number one theme, which is around teacher support. So that was, I think, validating as we came through both the summit examples along with what we had from the survey. That came away as the number one priority. And then you can look at, what's interesting is number 2 actually shows the biggest discrepancy between looking at cross-cultural competency and connections. And so that, again, is just information, I think, to be able to keep in mind as we're looking at our priorities as we're moving forward. Certainly people at the summit had a lot more context into what was intended in the development of that theme as they were doing the prioritization. But I thought that was an interesting point. So again, the themes are identified 1 to 18 on the sheet. If you take a look at number 2 from the survey, on the right-hand side here, you can see curriculum, and looking at less tech, consistency and continuity in literacy and math, which has been one of our focuses as we're moving forward, was certainly something that came out strong in the survey and was number 8 as far as the summit is concerned. So that's something that I think certainly deserves our attention as we're moving forward. Number 3 and 4, looking at early interventions for student mental health and expanding electives was also some things that jumped out, along with number 5, career development programs for students. So there's some interesting parallels on I think how the results came out between the survey results and the people that attended the summit. So I think helped guide both our long-term priorities, which was really the question that was asked at the summit, to develop what is the Oshkosh Area School District doing in 2036, so a 10-year look, as we're, it's seen as the #1 school district in the Fox Valley. What would that look like? What are those themes? So that's what came out of here. So I think between setting those priorities and I think also informing what our immediate initiatives are, I think the survey was helpful in that regard. So in addition to the quantitative aspects of the survey, we also had a short answer section that essentially asked, was there anything that was missed in those themes? And so you can see some of the major themes and frequencies that came out amongst the indication that we had missed a theme. Number 1, around student accountability, discipline, and student behavior. Fiscal responsibility, leadership, trust was number 2. Number 3 being staff support, compensation and retention. So you can start to see some of the patterns, and number 4 being core academic areas, traditional methods, homework standards. So you can start to see some themes bubble up as far as teacher support, looking at student discipline specifically in that support, along with what we take a look at for our core academic areas as we move forward. So just wanted an opportunity to discuss that as a board, see if there's any questions or things that you want to highlight, because again, we want to make sure that we're taking this information and using this as the foundation for our framework as we're moving forward. So let me just pause there before we move into some of the priorities and initiatives that we're taking a look at for next year.
Yeah, questions, comments? Chris.
You can go, Barb.
You go first.
I'm not surprised that number 1 is number 1 at all. Simply because I feel like that's what the community would view as being most critical towards providing the most direct benefit towards, children achieving and teachers being able to help children achieve. So I'm not surprised by that at all, that was number 1 on both of them. So that's my first comment.
Yeah, Barb.
I've heard from several people who took part in the summit that they feel it's absolutely critical that we honor the work that was done in the summit. It's a matter of trust, it's a matter of fidelity. If we throw out things that came out of the summit, with the amount of time people invested, the interactions among and between the people, I think was critical to the development of the priorities that were established. I didn't see the directions for the survey, so I don't know if that was defined as advisory or something that would result in items being added. But I also think we have to honor however we describe that work if we're going to maintain trust with the community. So, but I do see some overlaps, and I do see some pathways moving forward to integrate some of the items with one another. For example, I see number 2 on the survey with curriculum as being also a means of teacher support, providing the teachers with the tools, the instructional materials, the expectations that they need to do their jobs, and also the quality professional development and appropriate feedback for them to be successful. So I don't necessarily see them as separate, but I think it's just critical that we honor the work at both the summit and whatever the directions were for the survey moving forward.
Yeah. I don't know who was first. Go ahead, Molly.
I attended the summit as well, and I think I feel the need to clarify some of my comments on it. And my concern is with, like Barb used the term throwing out, it would be inappropriate to throw out some of the things that were said and conclusions that came from the summit. My frustration is that there were so many more things that were said and came up at the summit that are not reflected in the final project that literally was a project that didn't seem to connect to many of the other things that were said throughout the summit. So I very much respect everyone's 12 hours that they spent there, and I don't think that we did justice to making sure that we were still going to maintain all of that data, because we did not keep track of, there were hundreds of pages of things written down that were not compiled and were not really thought through. And the people who ran the summit did that on purpose. That's how they run these summits. So that's my frustration. I'm still very, I understand that teachers are important, but we are an education, we are a school district. The most important asset and the only reason we exist is students. And when the I'm not sure what to do with the teacher support component of this as being the one thing that comes out from a community in various ways when we are supposed to be supporting students first. So that, and I also am a little worried if we're putting things like saying small class sizes or compensation, things like that in this, because we're not going to be able to have small class sizes. We are going to be continuing to be competitively staffed and have competitive wages, but we can't meet these expectations. So I hope that we can make this not a deficiency-based mindset, however this ends up being finally worded. I understand that student behaviors are a difficulty, and I also understand that our number one thing to achievement, based off what we heard from our staff tonight with iReady, was that it has to have a belief mindset. And I don't want this to be deficiency-based or to be thinking that we are focused on bad behaviors being the reason that we are an unsuccessful district. We adults need to be focused on the students first. And however that comes out written in the strategic framework, that's what I'm going to be fighting for.
Tim.
I've seen a number of comments, people out in public talking about some of the comments that we made about the results from the summit. And I'm sorry, but I don't have a lot of sympathy that we went out and tried to collect information. We tried to collect what we believe to be the community's perspective of where we should concentrate on things. But we also could know full well going in that there were limitations of that particular process. And so I think that's why we expanded and said, let's go ahead and see if there are different voices to be heard. And we knew, I mean, just attending the summit, we knew what we had at most 10 students in there.
At various points.
And so we knew there was a lack of the student voice. And here we've got a survey that has over 1,200 students in there. Holy cows, did we get a different voice? And then the results of this very clearly tell us that the survey gives a slightly different perspective than what we got from the summit. And that really shouldn't be a surprise. That shouldn't diminish the result of the summit. It's just different. And so, yes, we found a different way to solicit feedback, and the feedback that we found here is giving us something slightly different. And I think that's very informative, that there are limitations. And then across the entire thing, there's another limitation, and it's in large respect what Molly brought up, that when you ask these questions, these are questions that are philosophical in nature. If we had all the money in the world, okay, yeah, that's what we can do, but we're constrained. And so, do I want to support teachers? Absolutely I do. But given the constrained reality of a limited budget, there's only so much we can do, and we've got to try to address prioritization within the constraints that we have to deal with. And so even what we have here, I wouldn't just take these results and say, this is what we have to do because of that, because these measures were asked under the notion of having no constraints per se. So, yes, we got to take all the feedback. I would ask, I think this is a great start here, you know, Dr. Davis, if we could, by the time we start getting to that notion of turning these into KPIs, also see this broken down by some of the demographics, because I would like to see what were the students' priorities here, because that, I'm sorry, but if the students tell me this is what they want, I would personally take that as that. I would weigh that more than some of the other people that have responded in this way. So I think breaking this down even more in some of the major categories, the 36 Board of Education members, with, yeah, we don't need that. But we can even do more with the data that we have here. I think this is a great start. I don't think this is disrespectful to the work that people did at the summit. It's a different approach. So let's use it and see what else we can do with it here.
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead, Beth.
I was just going to say, it's interesting what you said, Tim. You said if we could have anything, but then it's obviously important to listen to anyone, but the students, that was their mindset. You know, they're not paying taxes yet. They're not, you know, so we have to continue to look at all the information. Certainly the student voices are important, critical to the work, but they have they're coming from a different angle as well. And Molly, what you said about students first, I think anything we choose, the theme is students first. We are supporting the students in whatever it is we choose. That you're right, that's what we're doing.
But I guess I would challenge us to whatever we put in here, that we need to actually be able to say, yes, we are putting students first. I don't know that we could say that based off of some
we
of
haven't
this.
put anything
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying.
so-
Whatever we do, we need to actually be able to
Absolutely.
to justify that.
Absolutely.
Because I don't see right now that it's automatically that. It seems like it's not.
Sorry,
To
I'm
me.
just laughing to myself and wondering if I asked my kid, what would you want for the district? He'd be
Right.
like, get rid of this math stuff, you know? This is bringing down my GPA. No offense to the math teachers. And that's just a joke. I'm not trying to diminish anything. I think context matters a lot here, right? We know a few truths here. We can't replicate the commitment that people made spending 12 hours in that room and on a survey. We just can't. As to Tim's point, these are different things. As I tell my method students, you know, what's good data? Data you have is good, and this is all good data. We just have to understand what it's telling us and what it's not. I mean, I get the community concerns about forum shopping. We got to be really careful that we're not saying we didn't like the results we got, so we're looking elsewhere. No, what we're trying to do is understand how all of these complex constituencies, you know, students, teachers, taxpayers, business owners, how all of these different competing priorities can come together into something that we can translate as 7 individuals up here into a tangible plan. And that's not going to be easy, but I think it's possible. And I think there's so much overlap in what we found. Again, as Tim pointed out, which I thought was the coolest thing about the survey results, is that, yeah, the students are incredibly represented. So seeing that number one, teacher support, I mean, to me, that's telling me a lot about what what everyone in the community cares about, both students and everybody else. They do care about teachers. I think you can wrap up a lot of things, whether student behavior, I know there's divisions about what that means. We can wrap a lot into that staff and teacher support. Communication showed up, and that showed up in a lot of these different things, that people want to have a district that communicates better with them. Heck, that showed up tonight in our conversation with the people actually doing the work. How are we communicating with parents about setting goals so we're actually working collaboratively between parents and teachers and meeting our math and reading goals? Other things that showed up. Well, the biggest disconnect, cultural connections. That's fascinating to me. I know as one individual, I don't think that we want to dump cross-cultural competency because it showed up more at the summit than it did the survey. I think that's a function of the context. When you're spending 3 days having these discussions, it's a lot easier to understand what was meant by that and how we landed on that on the 3rd day, as opposed to just looking at it at a survey. Maybe the students didn't quite grasp what it meant. But again, this is a long way of saying I think that I'm comfortable with where we landed. We serve this diverse group of stakeholders, but we have some common ground here. Supportive staff, especially around behavior and mental health issues for students. The need for students and families to feel like they belong. That's the communication that's working collaboratively. The need for good communication. And of course, the core of all we do, academic excellence, that shows up in all of these things. So yeah, we're not gonna be able to do all of this stuff, but we ask people for a wish list, something aspirational. We gotta translate that into an actionable plan, all right? What can we actually do with our fiscal constraints that are real? So I think the only way people get disappointed is if we point it out as if, yep, everything you suggest, every individual out there, we're going to be able to do. Well, heck no, that's absolutely impossible. The key is finding what are those things we can actually coalesce around so we're not constantly distracted by what we can't do, but actually focus on what we can do. I think we can get there, and this is a great start. So I'll shut up and I'll listen now. Thanks for letting me rant. Others. Forgot I'm charged this meeting.
I feel like
Jacob.
there's not enough focus on like just the academic side of it in this list, though. Like,
yeah,
I know all of these things will support our scores, but where's the focus going to be on that? We need to put a report on that.
And that's why, right, when we talk about the KPIs, like I think obviously we're going to have 7 or 8 KPIs. 4 of them are probably going to have to be the math and reading.
Well, you get academics here is at 10 and 12 for priority of this list. I think that needs to be moved up quite a bit.
It's like a baseball team doesn't care about winning.
Yeah.
Doesn't end well.
Yeah. No.
Go ahead, Fred.
Well, I'll say, Jacob, so that's exactly what stood out to our executive team, like as we looked at it. And you'll see in the framework that we put together, academic growth and achievement was in there to make sure that we have that as a priority as we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, Chris.
I think all this data is good. I'll certainly say, especially with it being earlier in the summer and me spending a lot of time with my teenage kids, that I might have a different perspective of the student opinion than than they might give us. Although their opinion is very important, but I think we can take a lot of different surveys and all this input is really important. But I think number one was number one because, in my opinion, the community views that as the way to help students achieve the most and the way to help help kids achieve their full potential. I think the other things that come up continually in our meetings are how we do that, right? So we get behaviors talked about a lot, like how do we handle behaviors? And we had Dr. Coleman reference it about the principal at Jefferson. She figured that out a little bit, and the scores, they contribute some of that to the scores going up, right? So, people are gonna pick which school district their kid goes to or attends based on academic rigor, where they think their kid will fit the most, right? Where they think their kid will grow the most. If the school's safe, right? And if they feel a sense of belonging and, a tie to that school. Those are the things I think that, that we have to figure out, right? And we have to get really good at certain things that are going to make parents feel comfortable, in those areas. Education's changing a lot right now. My wife was at a homeschool graduation party this last weekend. Homeschooling's a big thing now. I would argue, I don't know, I haven't looked at the data, but I bet more people are going to homeschooling now than they ever have before in the past, right? And I think they're doing that because it gives their kids all this flexibility, and really it's not kind of like I don't know if I use the right word, but something that's not acceptable anymore, right? And there's all these different models evolving. So we have to figure out how the OASD model evolves with that, so that our community and the school district can continue to thrive. But I know for sure, students are going to pick districts where they think their kid's safe, where they think the academics are good, and where their kid's going to be held accountable and where they belong. I know that. That's my thoughts.
Can I make one more comment?
Said, yeah. Well.
I know people are making jokes about the student thoughts or the student voices or their student opinion. I've done a lot of intentional and a lot of unintentional work this past year talking to students, and not my own kids, because I don't get the insightful stuff from them. Agreed with both Chris and Mike on that point. I get it from the kids I get to talk to when I go into the schools and when I have intentionally tried to talk to them. We are underestimating them 100%. These kids are excited about their future, and if we can get them excited about their education, they are the ones who are going to be talking to their parents saying that they belong here. We know we have kids literally fighting with their parents. We've heard this in listening sessions. They're fighting with their parents because they feel they belong here. They don't want to be open enrolled somewhere else. It matters when we believe in and listen to what our kids ask for. And I'm guessing that a lot of those students, like Tim is saying, are saying that they want the more academic options. They want to be supported in their endeavors. And when kids are excited, they show it, and they show it both in their academic achievement and in their how they are engaged in the school in every other way. So yes, we should be number one listening to those students' voices, because they are the ones who can also convince their parents that we are the right option. And so, again, I'm going to be pretty darn sensitive when we even joke about the idea that that their views, because guess what, they actually probably have a lot better views than any of us sitting around the table, and really great solutions a lot of the time, too. So there's my soapbox.
Yeah, others. You want to keep going with it?
Yeah, I can transition into the framework, because that's very good information and feedback for us. We can certainly get the demographic breakdown in some of our major areas from the survey. But we want to make sure, again, that there's a direct connection with the feedback from the summit and the survey and how that lands in our strategic framework as we're moving forward. Because, again, we're developing that new framework to be more of a 5-year framework instead of an annual strategic plan. And so I want to show you exactly what the draft right now is and how the connection is. So one of the documents, and I'm showing that on the screen also, that was attached in your packet, is the first page of that strategic framework. And on the right-hand side, you can see our 2036 priority statement. So that is taken directly from what we have in our that we had from the summit. And 3 out of those 4 topics, or priority statements, I should say, are directly from the summit. So staff support, and we made it, certainly the summit, we know said teacher support. We made it a little bit more broad because it's staff support. We have a lot more than teachers that are doing our work in our classrooms and in our schools. So extending that to staff support, cultural connections, so kept that in there, and looking at communication. So knowing that those were 3 out of the top 4. The other 4th item was looking at citizen participation in our committee work. So we didn't put that as a priority statement. That'll be taken care of in another venue. So want to make sure that we have some actions there. And to what Jacob had brought up before, student growth and achievement needs to be in our priorities. Like, that has to be part of what we take a look at. So these are the priority statements. And again, we're using this document as a long-term document, and not that the urgency isn't right now, but we also want to make sure that we're shooting for things that our community has asked for. In 10 years from now, what are we doing really well? The community feels like if we're doing these 4 things really well, that we'll be in a very competitive space. So using that as our North Star for our priority statements. So important to know, again, our vision, mission, values will be something that will be consistent, not only at the board level, but also throughout our system. And then our work coming up, and I'll talk a little bit about this more at the end, would be our key performance indicators. So what does the board decide are the indicators that show health of a system that is making progress towards our vision, mission, values, and priority statements, to make sure that we're seeing on an annual basis, like, are we progressing or not, and how do we know that? So that'll be really the board's work over the next 3 meetings coming up for that. So the first page here is really our 1-page strategic framework, which looks at the long game. if you will. And we wanted to be able to put that on one page so you could see some of the longitudinal achievement, you could see some of the priority statements, and vision, mission, values that are part of that. The second page that I have up here is our plan on a page, and that really gets at an annual look at what we're doing. So this zooms down into our urgency of now. So we want to keep our eye on the future, but we also know we have work to do right now, and we need to prioritize that work because we have a lot of different opinions of things we should be working on. We want to make sure we're prioritizing that work. So we're using this plan on a page again as a 1-year look at the work that we're going to do. And this again provides the same vision, mission, values. And then if you remember from our current strategic plan, we also have core areas that we look at. The key performance indicators that you'll come up with will be under one of these 4 core areas, and so we'll tease that out as part of our exercises in the next 3 meetings. But also, this is the first time that we'd see an annual goal. So we'll have annual goals for our KPIs, and that will show up on the plan on a page. So again, the first page is going to be a 5-year longitudinal look at achievement. The second page, the plan on a page, is going to be looking at that annual goal for that urgency because we need to know what our targets are. To get at the action part of it, and this is, I think, where we took Summit information and the survey information and combined that with our experiences from what we heard from our teachers as we went around at the end of the year talking about climate, culture, and our budget after action feedback, along with the Summit and the survey feedback, gets at the initiatives that we're working on. So if you think about the initiatives, we're looking at these initiatives to be things that we would work on for 1 to 3 years that we feel are processes that absolutely need to be improved based on the feedback that we're getting, and that focusing on these areas are what are going to move our key performance indicators forward and move us towards those 2036 priorities. So these are the initiatives that we're taking a look at from a district standpoint. The administrative team spent the last couple days taking a look at the top 3, which will be inside of each one of our school strategic frameworks and our school plans on a page. Will be how are these administered and followed through on as we move forward. So again, you see the support for student behaviors, which I think is very important. To think about this again from an asset standpoint. Like if kids are showing behaviors that aren't consistent with our expectations, they're communicating something to us. So what are they communicating, and how do we support them in a multitude of ways? And sometimes that changes school to school. We have some schools where suicidal ideation is a significant issue and they need to focus on that. In other schools, it might be something else. And so we want to be able to customize, but we also want to name consistency across the district and be in line with directly what we heard from the Summit and the survey, that student behaviors are something that we need to support as one of our priorities. Implementing our instructional resources consistently, again, that gets at that curriculum, especially in math and reading as we've been making those gains. But to be able to get at that consistency of implementation, a lot of that has to do with supporting teachers on our professional development and making sure they have the resources to provide. So again, consistent with what we heard from the Summit and the survey. Improving external communication. Certainly communication comes up in most circles, so when we talk about our needs, we wanted to narrow that down, at least to have a start towards external communication. So how are we communicating to the community at large? From a school standpoint, how are we consistently having expectations of communicating with parents from both the classroom aspect and the building aspect? And so those are some actions that we're playing out. And then finally for us, looking at reducing our operational expenses. So we know in our current state financially, we can't just ignore the elephant in the room, is that we have a constraint on resources, and we need to name that. And so those are the 4 initiatives that we're taking a look at focusing on. And again, these initiatives may be things that we take a look at for multiple years. And the idea is that you work on these initiatives until we get proficient in our system to have processes in place where these aren't the topics that we need to focus on anymore, and then we roll in something else. The trap is to try to do 10 initiatives at the same time, because when you start to break down each one of these initiatives, well, each one of these initiatives has probably 1 to 3 strategies that you're working on, right? Each one of those strategies has 3 to 4 action steps that you're working on, and pretty soon you got a lot of things going on at one time. So really to focus this in on what we feel is the most important work that we need to do in response to what we heard from the summit and the survey. And the plan on a page is a spot that we want to be able to highlight that. So the priorities are in the framework, long-term, and then the initiatives, the short-term areas of urgency are something that we want to be able to provide. So that's how we're reflecting our actual work, and that work began yesterday for 26-27. I mean, it's begun informally in other places, but formally with our administrative team as we move forward. So let me pause there. That was kind of the second part of my presentation, and need to provide a connection between the community feedback and the work that we're looking at doing.
Yeah, Beth.
With everything that everybody said, the majority of those items appear to be in the strategic framework priorities, the four priorities, the strategic priorities, sorry. It's really important that we get down to 4 and then, you know, go off of there with all of the expectations that we have. But as I was thinking about what everybody said, the majority of those are in here, so I'm pleased about that.
I'll just say, given the discussion that, and the feedback we've gotten about the need for continuity and consistency and equity across the district, it's really nice to see the visual about how a high-level plan that we're looking at translates into alignment and focus at each school building. I think that's very important.
The key.
It's a systems approach, which you need for a large bureaucracy.
I would like to see a tighter alignment with the 4 core areas and the 4 initiatives that were identified by the executive team, as well as the 4 priorities that came out of the summit. For example, there's nothing that addresses stakeholder engagement in what the executive team came forth with, or what the strategic planning group the summit came forward in the first 4. I need to see a tighter alignment among these.
How about number 2?
Number 2, I see, and student growth and achievement I see, but I don't see stakeholder engagement and...
No, I'm saying in cultural
I'm sorry.
connections, foster deep community ties through outreach that honors the diverse identities, beliefs, and ambitions of our students' families to create a sense of belonging.
Where are you reading that one from?
The strategic framework.
Ah, okay. Okay. I think there are elements there, but I just need a tighter alignment than what I'm seeing right now. And I view this as a draft, so I don't view this as being cut in stone that can't be modified or changed moving forward. And under student growth and achievement, I would see an opportunity to incorporate some of the other things that came out of the summit, namely career and technical education. I think we heard from students at the summit who wanted more course offerings, and I think we saw that in the survey as well. So I'd see opportunities to incorporate more of what came out of the summit and also what came out of the surveys. But I'd like to see better alignment with the wording among these 3 elements, what came out of the summit, the initiatives of the executive team, and then these core areas.
Are these, I think, so you're talking about the core areas, the things written in green, student growth and achievement, culture and safety, stakeholder engagement, and finance and operations. Are those just in there as placeholders?
Yeah, those are rolled over from what we currently have,
Okay.
and that's what we'll talk through. So when we get into our work in the next 3 meetings talking about our key performance indicators, and we want to better define those core areas, we can certainly do that based on what indicators that we have as we're moving forward. So those are just rolled over, and those are pretty typical core areas that you would have, but certainly something that, yeah, it's certainly a draft as we're moving forward.
Keep rolling, Brad.
Okay, and so in addition to that, I also want to provide an opportunity, and this would be important, I think, for board members when you're thinking about going out and doing your school visits next year. And as we start, what I'm going to propose as evolving our reporting structure is to be able to get into some more details related to actions. And so over the last 2 days, we've been working with our administrative team, so all of our principals and administrators across the system, to work on some tools that would actually do some implementation and develop some action plans that are consistent around our initiatives that we have that were declared. So the initiative action plan is an opportunity for us to have a common template, a common document, if you will, that would be consistent not only at the district level for departments, but would be consistent across all buildings, where we would have a definitive initiative that's stated, and we have support for student behaviors as one initiative. And then we would have declaring the current state, desired state. Again, if it's a particular building, there might be some variation between where that building is, who owns that particular initiative, and then what are the strategies and action plans, and action steps, I should say, that are developed on that particular initiative. So what you'll be able to see next year as you go into schools, for example, is student behavior supports. Every school will have an action plan on how they're working through supporting student behaviors. You'll be able to, in your visit, go into classrooms, but also be able to sit down with the principal, and they'll be able to walk you through, here are the action steps that we have planned and the strategies that we've been working through to address student behaviors. There's consistency then from a district level on student behavior supports, because that's what we're hearing from the community. And then there's autonomy at the building level to have that nuance based on their data and what they're seeing from their students, because our staff at the buildings know the students best and what their data is saying. And then there's autonomy for them to create that action plan based on what that area of focus is declared by our initiative. So it's a balance of being able to have consistency and continuity, and the forms are all going to be the same. So as you go into 3 or 4 different schools, you'll be able to look at a document that will look, the structure of that document will look the same, but what you'll be able to talk to the principal about is what are the things that are unique here. And so that'll be something that we started with the principals in the last 2 days to get our initial drafts for next year. We'll be circling back around with them on August 4th to do some refinement of those drafts. And then they'll be taking those drafts to their staffs as we bring teachers back the last 2 weeks in August to be able to do some further refinement. So when we hit the ground running on September 1st with our students, these action plans will be in motion, and then will be monitored on a regular basis by our principals, by our directors, and then certainly, again, you engaging as you do your school visits, it would be a natural place for them to be able to just give some of that highlight. So this is not something that we've done before. This is a call for more structure and accountability and better communication, as we've heard that call throughout the system on our most important actions that we're taking, which we are deciding through our prioritizing based on our initiatives. So it's a pretty typical action planning document. There's nothing, earth-shattering about it, but what it does is provides us with some consistency as we're moving forward. So this document, called our Initiative Action Plan, is organized then by strategy. So you might have 1 to 3 strategies, 4 strategies that a building would be working on, depending on what their needs are. And then we'll also have what we call an initiative step diagram that will allow you to see the chronological order to which that work is going to be done. Because not all those strategies, it's not like we do strategy 1 for the first 2 months and strategy 2 for the second 2 months. Some of these strategies are done intermittently throughout the year. So we also wanted to have, if you will, a roadmap to how are we getting to our end through the year. And so if you show up at a building and do an observation in November, which you'll be able to talk to the principal about, they'll be able to take this roadmap out, if you will, and say, here, it's November, here are the strategies and a description of those strategies that we've been working on for the first couple months, and here's where we are right now, and here's what we're going to be working on in the next couple months as we move forward. So you'll be able to engage, I think, much more in depth with some of the specific actions that are going on at the classroom level. Now, we also know that these plans will evolve, because as we learn more about our students every year, there might be some tweaking of these, but we also want to make sure that there's a plan, that we're not just coming in and saying, well, we'll see what happens this year, and then we'll react to it. We want to make sure that we're proactively planning. And so these are a couple tools that we introduced over the last couple days to our administrative team, and I just wanted to be able to share that with you as board members in the community, again, as a call back for the accountability and the structure and a way for us to communicate our work. And I think as we finish up our KPIs and approve this strategic framework, I think being able to get on a regular cadence of reporting these action plans, I think, can be important. So if we do that quarterly, we could break that up as part of our written reports and just have an opportunity to be able to make sure that as a board member, you can see what actions are going on at that time. So
That's great.
So let me pause there and take any questions on those documents.
So I assume the first 2 pages of that the strategic framework and then the plan on a page will be available on the website. And then the initiatives, whatever it sounds like they're pretty finalized. But to what extent will the initiative action plans, both at a district level and at a school level, be available publicly, like on websites or via reporting, or how would that work?
Yeah, so we plan on doing that via reporting and not necessarily on websites, because they're going to be documents that are going to be living, breathing documents because of the nuances that are in there. So we want to be able to keep those to be fluid, but it's the reporting aspects of it, especially at a district level, that we can get on a cadence on, so those reports would be available. And also, again, from a board standpoint, if somebody's interested in talking to a school leader, related to their action plan, the expectation is like we engage in that conversation, right? And you have documentation. And it's also something that you've seen at the board level and the community has seen at a board level, so you understand like what the structure of that document is and what you could expect to see. And that's what we'll continue to work with our administrators on as we go. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll have tonight, again, is just a setup for our upcoming work, just related to our key performance indicators. So really the last part of this framework is going to be important from a board standpoint, and to be able to spend the next 3 meetings getting ourselves around what our recommendations are going to be for our key performance indicators, which will really be the high-level indicators that will show the health of the district. So if you think about going to the doctor's office and you get your height, weight, blood pressure, like those are the high-level indicators. That's the type of level that we want these KPIs to be. Right now we've got 19 of them, so we'd like to refine those down to probably 7. And so that'll be our work over the next couple meetings. The goal is to be able to get some consensus from the board and an approval of those in August, so we can come to the beginning of the school year as we're kicking off for convocation. We can come with a completed framework of KPIs, and we know what our targets are going to be, and then do some goal setting off of that. Certainly if it takes a little bit more time, so be it, for a robust conversation. But there is some urgency behind that as we're moving forward. Again, the initiatives have been launched with our administrators, so the work continues. But we want to make sure we're honoring the board's ability to be able to monitor the system, part of your responsibilities, and do that at a high level. So also just wanted to show you where that work is going to go. That'll be directly within the document. So, and that concludes my report for tonight.
Well, thank you, Superintendent Davis. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. So for the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item, or as discussed it at a previous meeting. They'll be acted upon on with one vote without discussion, and if a board member would like to discuss any item, it'll be pulled out of the consent agenda and voted on separately. No board vote is needed at this point to move resolutions from the consent agenda to individually considered. So do we have any items people want to pull?
1B.
Barb wants to pull 1B, you said?
Yes.
All right. 1B.
Thank you.
All right. If there's nothing else, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda absent 1B?
So move.
Second.
Take the roll.
Was that Wright or was that Wolf?
Wyman.
Wyman, right.
Right.
And Wright.
Yep.
All right. Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Smeltney.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Consent resolution carries.
Excellent. All right. Item 1B is appointment of an administrator, South Park Middle School principal. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Barb.
Herzog moves. A second?
Second.
Molly Spilnick seconds. Discussion?
I just thought we should have an opportunity to commend the new principal at South Park Middle School, who's been a teacher and an assistant principal in the district. She was largely involved with the implementation of the Care Days program at Oshkosh. It's been hosted at Oshkosh West High School now for 10 consecutive years. And I think this is an appropriate time to wish her well in her new assignment.
And she was, her first year of teaching, she was my children's gym teacher at Washington School, and her name was Miss Fritz.
Excellent.
And a successful volleyball coach as well.
Excellent. All right, you can call the roll.
Hess.
Aye.
Smolley.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Warwick.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Resolution 1B carries.
All right, individually considered resolution. We have a resolution establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $60 million in general obligation, promissory notes, Series 2026. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second, Barb.
So we have Wright and Herzog. Do we have discussion, or do we want an explanation?
Yeah, Brian and Eric are here.
All right, Brian and Eric, come on up, tell us about this.
Conversations.
Well, good evening, Board. I have Eric Cass here. He's the Director of Public Finance for PMA Securities to answer any questions you might have about the resolution.
Dr. S.
Eric, I think that this is for you. I think,
Perfect. That's
I
why I'm
think
here.
you presented this to us at Facilities and Finance, and that was before we got the presentation about our potential solutions for coming up with the $3+ million deficit that we're still facing. My question to you is, with this promissory note, in the resolution that we have very specific principal amounts, and it's not typical. It's not, most people, when they think of a note, it's a fixed amount on an annual basis. Here we're at like 7 million, then to 9 million, then back down to 7, and we bounce around at 1 million for a while. Can you, one, explain why we do that? And two, the other question is, do we have to do exactly what is listed in the resolution right now, or is there any flexibility in anything that we are proposing here?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Let me answer the second one.
Yep.
So when there's principal amounts in the parameters, there's also built-in flexibility up to 10% of each principal amount that's targeted in there. And the reason why we do that is because we're really, with you guys, targeting the levy at 21.5, which was part of the discussion that we had in May with the Finance Committee, right? So we hear that loud and clear. And when we do schedule the sale and we get the final interest rates, we need that flexibility to make sure that we're able to move some of those principal amounts around. Now, to answer your first question, why are they all different, right? When we think about a 30-year mortgage, for example, we want and normally have our payment the same every month for principal and interest. As you get closer to year 30, you're paying more principal, less interest, because time value of money and interest, right? With you all, when we look at your existing debt, which we had as part of the presentation in early May, it's a little bit choppy. So for example, 1 year it's like 3.5 million, and then 10 years later it's 2.5 million. So again, in order to build out that target of 21.5 million from a levy perspective, we're really looking at amortizing different principal amounts each year to hit those. That's why they vary so widely. But overall, the last point I would make is when we're structuring debt, we're going to have more principal towards the end and less on the top, because interest goes down over time on the 20-year amortization. So we're able to kind of match that when we're looking at a flat levy. So it's always going to be differentiated. Just like, again, like a 30-year mortgage where you're paying less principal month 1 versus, year 30.
And I'm kind of thinking about it in terms of, we have other notes and things that we're paying off that, like the 2020 referendum debt, the interest rate was much better.
Correct.
During those time frames.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that like the $79.8 million bond that we did last year that has built in the same sorts of 10% flexibility, something like that?
It
Is that
did,
the case?
yep,
Okay.
yep.
So we do have some flexibility. This doesn't just lock us in.
It does not. Because one of the major things, we don't know how much premium we're going to get when the investor wants a coupon of 5%, for example, but you're only paying 4.5% interest rate. You're going to get a lump sum, and what we do is we push principal up to use that premium right away to save long-term interest. So there's different things that are part of the deal that we need to just make sure we have flexibility on the day of sale for that.
That addresses everything I have. Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions?
Thank you for coming tonight and for
Of course.
waiting.
Yeah, of course.
At this point in the meeting.
And to be clear, this is referendum debt. Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, I assume that's obvious, but I want to make sure people don't think we're borrowing $60 million for operations. All right.
Right?
Yeah? Call the roll.
Shirley?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Right?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Hess?
Aye.
Resolution 4 carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. All right, do we have any requests for future agenda items for committee review?
Not at this time.
All right, announcements. The only announcement I have is June 24th. After our meeting, we will have the board self-evaluation. I did send around a brief survey map to our policy that I hope you all can take prior to the meeting, and I'll have all that data for you. I know 4 of us have taken it thus far. I have it set up, so I have no idea who those people are, so I won't harass any of you individually, but just try to get that done. And my hope is we could leave that meeting with 3 tangible board goals for the next year, so start giving some thought onto what you think those goals might be. And in accordance with our policy, they can be quantitative or qualitative, so just think about that. That's all I got. Any other announcements? All right, then we can adjourn to executive session to consider the disciplinary data of specific persons under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, section 1F. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Oh, sorry. Kept you
You
out of
beat
the
me to it.
kept you out of the box
No,
score,
that's fine.
Jacob.
That's good.
Yeah.
Both of you?
Yeah.
All right, Wolf?
Aye.
Wright?
Aye.
Wyman?
Aye.
Ford?
Aye.
Herzog?
Aye.
Hess?
Aye.
Smiley?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned to executive session.